Hello, everyone. My name is Gina Wright, and I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions in the Southwest at Seton Hall University.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jenna McAteer. I'm also an Assistant Director of Admission here at Seton Hall University, as well as a proud graduate of the College of Education and Human Services School Counseling Program.
Today, Jenna and I will be speaking to you about college advising in the year of the pandemic. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. This year was almost like a perfect storm for students. And while we have yet to fully overcome the current health crisis, many individuals, institutions, and organizations in the world of education have responded with immediate and long-term changes in direction to help give students a sense of comfort during this unprecedented time. While we will briefly cover the impact of the COVID-19 on the college search and application process, our greater focus will be on the shift in the current, ways that institutions across the country have stepped up during this time, changing policies and priorities, and pivoting to virtual platforms so that students have a fair and equal opportunity to be admitted to the schools on their list for the upcoming application cycle. Our hope is that this information will give your students a sense of relief, recognizing that these changes have been made in their favor. Jenna will conclude the presentation by offering a few tips for students in the areas of self-care and mindfulness, which we hope will help you to help them navigate the college application process ahead. COVID-19 has made several waves in the traditional college search and application process. As we all know, summer is a convenient and common time for high school students to explore college campuses. In an effort to protect prospective students and campus community members, many opportunities for students and families to visit campuses this past spring, summer, and even this upcoming fall have been suspended. Additionally, as a result of the pandemic, several SAT and ACT administrations this past spring and early summer were canceled, and many students were bumped out of their testing locations. High school closures limited and eliminated opportunities to meet college admissions representatives at in-person visits and fairs, and many community events were also canceled, alongside most regional and national college fairs. We recognize that what becomes most stressful for students in the midst of the college application process in normal circumstances is that the demand is very high, but a student's perceived sense of control is very low. And with a worldwide pandemic and all of the cancellations that came along with it, many students were left feeling as if their control over this process was completely stripped from them. However, as I mentioned earlier, universities across the nation have made rapid changes in policies and procedures to adapt to the current circumstances and to support students that are in the midst of the college search and application process. With your help, we hope to educate students about the many opportunities that are available for them, many of which are new or more robust as a result of the temporary shift to a virtual world. And we hope that this will bring students a sense of comfort. Virtual college visits have quickly become the trend in the world of admissions. Through several platforms, students can participate in high-quality, sometimes 360-degree tours narrated by students or faculty. Some are pre-recorded, and some universities offer live walking tours of their campuses, followed by an information session or a time for Q&A. In addition to the resources available on university websites, students can utilize websites like UVisit or Campus 360 that offer a long list of 360-degree tours at various universities across the country. UVisit even has a feature whereby students can treat themselves and take a 360-degree tour using virtual reality headsets. And I hear that you can even buy a virtual reality headset made out of cardboard on Amazon for $8. After completing a virtual tour, we recommend that students email the admissions office and ask to schedule a virtual meeting or interview with the admission counselor in their region to demonstrate interest and inquire about upcoming events like virtual information sessions, live open house events, and admissions events. Demonstrated interest is a factor of considerable or moderate importance for admission, according to 40% of colleges and universities that responded to a 2019 NACAC survey. And with a 50-50 chance of demonstrated interest impacting a student's admissions decision, it doesn't hurt for a student to spend the extra time engaging with colleges on their list. Colleges track demonstrated interest in different ways, but it could be as simple as a student opening the emails they receive from a university, exploring their website, completing virtual inquiry cards at virtual high school visits or fairs, or staying connected with their admissions representative with questions that come up along the way. Another change that many universities are implementing across the nation is a shift to test optional policies. More than 1,450 colleges and universities will not be requiring standardized test scores for the fall 2021 admissions cycle. Instead, these schools will take a holistic approach to the application review process, and they will not penalize students for the absence of scores. That should relieve students of the pressure of a test that may not be readily available in their region. We also do want to take a moment to encourage students to continue studying for tests if there is a test available in their region. Reason being that there are still some universities working through the complexities of how this decision will impact their special program admission and merit aid. Public institutions, for example, must work with the government to change their policies, and therefore scores may still be required for scholarship depending on the institution. It's always better to be prepared, and we encourage students to ask these questions of their college admission counselors at the schools on their list so that they can make informed decisions when targeting schools during this upcoming application cycle. And now I will pass things over to Jenna, who will share some insight into what many admissions professionals plan to prioritize in the fall 2021 application cycle.
So much, Gina, for those reminders of how counselors can go ahead and try to reinstate that degree of control that students have over not only their college search process, but also the application process itself. So we'd like to shift the current in our presentation to discuss a little bit about how institutions are responding to these changes and also working to kind of mitigate the sense of demand that we are putting out for students with our requirements for the application. So like Gina has mentioned, a lot of schools have gone ahead and moved toward a test optional approach to kind of relieve students of that demand of having to sit for a standardized test. So earlier this summer, Making Caring Common project at Harvard University drafted a statement that was endorsed by college admissions deans and vice presidents for enrollment management by over 300 different institutions across the country. And through it, they've really outlined what is going to be very highly considered and very important in the fall 2021 application review cycle. So some of these instances are first, service and contributions to family and community. These contributions can be as grandiose as going ahead and developing a mobile app to connect people in a community, or as simple as, making sure that a next door neighbor had adequate water and adequate toilet paper during the quarantine period. So on both the Common Application and the Coalition application this year, students will have the opportunity, and it's totally optional, to discuss their pandemic experience and how it might have gone ahead and impacted their academic work or their social life, perhaps things that they learned about themselves throughout the pandemic. And we would go ahead and encourage students to take advantage of telling a story through this space because it's just simply another way to get to know them so that we can better advocate for their admission to our university. So as counseling professionals, on one hand, you're going to be working with students to kind of process the experience. On the other hand, it will be important to help them write about it in a concise manner because I believe that the word count for both responses varies between 250 to 300 words. We also are going to emphasize past or future academic work. We recognized over the spring as schools made transitions from in-person learning to virtual learning, there were a lot of tough decisions that had students' best, mental health in mind, where perhaps schools moved from a pass-fail grading scale, or perhaps students had to choose to eliminate some classes from their schedule just because of the transition. So it's important to remind students that we aren't going to, go ahead and focus solely on that academic work done over the past few months. We're going to consider them holistically, take a look at their past work as, freshmen, sophomores, and then also at the future academic work that they've committed to in their senior year. And finally, self-care is something that we are working to encourage students to adapt throughout this entire process. Many of you are probably familiar with the concept of mindfulness. And I think now more than ever, it's important to give our students the gift of mindfulness because it's so easy to ruminate on, perhaps changes to a college search plan or grades that were earned during this very challenging time in the past. And then also, focus on, am I going to get admitted to the university of my choice, or will financial considerations be a problem for my family and sending me to my college of choice? So it's important to kind of, ground them in the present And here are a few different simple, what I've come to find, tasks that we can share with our students. So number one, especially in times of quarantine and social distancing, something as simple as a mindfulness walk is a nice thing to encourage a student to do. Really get outside, get some fresh air, and really be open to all experiences with all of their senses, as opposed to thinking about the application process and all that they are working through. For students who enjoy breathing exercises, square breathing is always a simple one to suggest. What's nice is that it could either be done on paper, it could be imagined, and it's very simple where you're asked to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and pause for 4 seconds until a student feels calm. One of my favorite techniques is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 pause. I like it because it's easy to remember and very accessible in a time of need for a student. So encouraging them, if they ever feel like they are disconnected from the present or in a moment of panic, to sit themselves in their room, then take a look and see 5 things that they could see, 4 things that they can touch, 3 things that they can hear, 2 things that they could taste, and 1 thing that they can smell. To again ground themselves in the present moment and also open their senses. There are several apps out there as well that I'm sure you've recommended to your students. I really appreciated what the Headspace app had done for students this year. As you know, there are several free mindfulness and meditation exercises within the app, but also this year, I believe that for $9.99 or something along those lines, students can gain access to the Headspace library for an entire year. So they can also access some psychoeducational content about, practices of sleep and, eating mindfully and such. So it's a really great gift to give students, especially as they're transitioning into the college realm. And then finally, something as simple as coloring. With a simple Google search, you'll come to find that a lot of colleges and universities have drafted different, images with either their logo or a picturesque spot on campus where students can just sit and color. And I think that's a really good way to kind of add a breath of fresh air to students, especially if this is a college that's one of their top choice schools. It's a fun way to approach the process. So in summation, looking ahead to next steps and to summarize what we've discussed, number one, as we had mentioned, self-care is ever important during this time. We all know the connections between mental health and physical health, and now more than ever, it's important to take care of ourselves in both realms. So gifting our students with mindfulness, working to ground them in the current moment, as opposed to ruminating on the past and the effects of the pandemic, or projecting to the future and kind of unknown admissions decisions and plans. Like Gina had mentioned, demonstrated interest is something that students can completely really take advantage of during this time, especially this virtual time. So again, it could be as committed as attending an open house online, participating in an interview, or simply just opening the emails that colleges are sending to students at this time. As we had mentioned, if students are preparing for the SAT or ACT and do have access either to a physical testing center, and it won't be a burden on their mental health or financially, we do ask them, and encourage them to go ahead and consider taking the test. And I think that with that all or nothing thinking surrounding the pressure on test day, I think we'll come to find that students might actually do better than they had anticipated, knowing that ultimately it is an option for them. If they don't choose to submit the score, they don't necessarily have to. And finally, virtually visit. Gina had mentioned some awesome tools, whether it's Campus 360 or UVisit. Yes, students can treat themselves on Amazon by a virtual reality headset and include their phone within it, so that as they're turning their head, they're seeing all degrees of campus. And I think this is a really unique opportunity because whereas a trip to a college might have been like a 6-hour ordeal between driving and spending the time on campus, now students can invest those 6 hours in seeing 6 different schools across several states across the university. So although the pandemic has certainly made waves in the process, I think there's also some unique opportunities that are coming to fruition from it. Okay, so Gina, do you want to explain these resources?
Sure. This is just a list of the resources that were cited in preparing today's presentation. If you are interested in gaining a list of schools, for example, that have gone test optional this year, the NACAC website is always a great resource to explore, and there are some other great resources on here as well. And that will conclude our presentation. Thank you all so much for being here. If you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to Jenna or myself. We've also listed the Director of Admissions at Seton Hall, Mary Claire Cullum, who will be joining us in this next part of the presentation to help answer any questions that you may have about the content that was covered today. Take care, and we'll see you in a second.